everybody, and welcome to Suffolk Business Live. My name's Craig Sennett, and with me today is Helen Oldfield of Affinity PR. Hey, Helen.
Hello.
Thanks very much for coming on. Your business is PR. You know, PR is a big part of what you do, obviously at Affinity PR. But what I wanted to start with is, in your own words, what's the difference between PR and marketing?
It's a shame you said in my own words.
Yeah.
I could have borrowed something.
Well, you can go for like a CIM sort of textbook answer if you want.
Well, I can tell you what Sophia Loren said.
Well, go on in.
In the 50s, the screen idol, gorgeous Italian brunette. She said, sex appeal is 50% what you've got and 50% what people think you've got. And that, for me, is the essence of PR.
Okay, so
it's all about changing the way that people feel and changing the way that they want to purchase and who they want to do business with, but it's about changing how they feel about things.
So would you say it's kind of almost like the building a brand side of marketing? Or
ish, because it does work really closely and hand in hand with that very important marketing process of branding. You've got to have a brand. For example, your firm, you're a recruitment consultant. You've got brand values attached to that, not just a visual branding. When you sat down and thought, okay, what kind of firm are we going to be delivering? We're going to be delivering an efficient, professional, ethical firm. The brand values are what a PR will take and run with. We're looking for opportunities to then explain the brand values through explaining what you're doing and who you're working with and how you're doing it. And we're looking for opportunities to kind of position you and your brand, or you as the face of your brand.
Which is interesting, because when we set up Icon, we spent a long time deliberating over the name. Oddly enough, we thought Icon Consultants, Icon Recruitment, Icon Personnel, and we went for consultants. And I remember the first mistake we made with one of these things where you put your business cards out and people say what they like about them. And they said, great business cards, what on earth do you do? Because it said Icon Consultants and didn't say anything to do with recruitment, and we were like, glaring mistake. But obviously now people know of us and stuff like that, and that people build a bit of an appreciation of what you do, and it's very much about feeling. Is essentially what you're saying. It's building a relationship between a thing or a person and another person. And
the bit that you were saying that you didn't have a strap line initially, the kind of beneath your logo, this is what we do and this is how we do it. Again, that for me is the important bit for me as a PR. Because otherwise, even if you just take subjects like shoes, there are shoemakers and line them all up. What makes one brand of shoemakers perceived as different or better than or more appropriate for an individual customer compared with that one and that one? It isn't just about price. It's how people feel about those brands and what they see them doing.
I suppose it's funny, it almost reminds me of an example, and I don't know how true this is, but I was told years ago by someone that BMW, the only reason BMW became as good as they are, they put the price up by quite a lot, and then once they got the revenue in, they then employed better engineers and stuff like that. But now BMW as a brand has a PR value. There's a certain degree of association, sometimes good, sometimes bad, whatever, but it's a brand with value. And I tend to find that it's quite hard for a lot of business owners to build, we can't all be the size of BMW and stuff like that, but I do find that there are really truly some businesses locally that I feel actually have a brand.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly possible to have a really small firm or maybe a small local family firm, and for your customers, your competitors and your potential customers to be able to sit down and say, oh yeah, I know what they're about, even if they've never shopped there or done business with them. And that's really because the owners of that business have kind of made a decision to become the face of their brand. And they've gone out into their local communities and they've kind of just gone to places that match their brand values. They've made sure that they are seen in the places that their customers are likely to be attending. That's all really important in terms of having an authentic brand. So, for example, if I ran a shop in Felixstowe High Street, regardless of what it sold, It's no good me as a Felixstowe High Street based one branch shop telling my customers that I'm doing loads of business with customers in Manchester and London, and all my suppliers come from big stores in London or big suppliers. It's a complete mismatch of brand values. What they want to know is, I love being in this high street, you're all lovely, I'm really active in my community in Felixstowe. My suppliers are down the road.
Local,
let me introduce you to them.
So that would be essentially pitching their PR as that we are, a local business supporting and interacting within the local community.
Exactly.
And I mean, you're obviously quite, sort of interactive within sort of networking communities and stuff locally. I mean, the economy's not what it used to be. It's taken a bit of a downturn.
So I'm told.
Yeah, so we hear, but. Would you say people's perception... I mean, are you finding people are asking you for different types of PR? Firstly, are there different types of PR?
Yeah, there are definitely different types of PR. And if you take the whole of marketing, which is, sales oriented, it's about shifting units or amounts or increasing your turnover. If you saw that as a filing cabinet... that's the marketing filing cabinet. And in the top drawer, if that was called PR, all the little bits within that drawer would include things like media relations, which is going out there and finding the right journalists who might be interested in hearing about your news, your stories and your successes. Another tool might be product placement. So depending on what you supply, but let's say you were a car manufacturer, you're going to want to see your product placed at certain sporting events, driven by certain celebrities, by high-profile people that have influence. That's product placement. And another tool, if you like, in the PR kit is simple things like speaking events, finding networks where our clients can be and be seen. So... strangely enough, I do very, very little of that tool that people think that we PRs do all the time, which is writing press releases. I can tell you I write about 3 a year. I just don't work that way. If I know my client has an interesting story or a great new product or service that really does feel to me, I don't think anyone else is doing that, then I'll go to the journalists in the titles that I think their ideal customers are going to be reading. Or television channels, radio channels and so on, and online stations. And I'll be speaking to those journalists and saying, I've got an idea. How does this sound? I think your users, your readers, your audience will like this because... So we've done the research, and then at that stage, if that person says, we like the sound of that story, send me something on that, I'll send them an email with the facts.
Okay.
So that's an unusual way to work, and it's quite controversial, I'm learning, because many agencies that say that they're doing PR, really what they're doing is a kind of a focused writing service. They're literally writing press releases day in, day out, and pushing them out, hoping that some of them might get published.
I think with that sort of thing, ideally, I suppose, having written a few in my time, I think, like what you say, it's a case of targeting the right audience. You send it out to 500 people, chances are 498 of them aren't going to be relevant. It'd be better to send it to 2 that that are interested.
Well, also, sometimes it's the right idea but completely the wrong time. Magazines typically have a 3-month lead-in time. So what's on my desk now is Christmas. So it's no point people coming to me expecting to get in a magazine next week unless they can work with me to find a Christmas-oriented story for their product. It's not going to get there because there are seasonal trends in PR and marketing, and you have to kind of piggyback onto those and work within them.
Okay. My second question then was, given the economy being as it is, are you finding people aside from the obvious spending a bit more on it or spending a bit less on it depending on their budgets now, are you sort of tending to find PR has changed during the recession, or has it stayed pretty much the same?
I think it's changed in that customers require you to be very outcome oriented. You've got to be able to measure the results of PR, otherwise what's the point in doing it? And I think they're wanting, well, they're narrowing the focus. Instead of publicising for the sake of publicity, just keeping a presence out there in the local media, they're now saying, well, hang on, we'd rather do, say, 2 big events and do some social media and do some guest appearances with certain charities, for example, than 28 things which might get diluted. So it's a much more focused.
I think there's also a thing as well, you run the risk of getting overexposed, sort of thing. I mean, you can get a bit tired of seeing the same things, whereas I think you can still do the volume, but if it's different mediums, then you reach a broader audience, and sometimes people that could be getting a bit saturated with seeing it will get that little break and then think, and see it again, sort of thing.
So true, because nobody wants to be accused of being the person that turns up to the opening of an envelope, do they?
Oh, yeah, that's very true.
And everybody looks in certain publications and says, they're there again.
Well,
so that's negative PR. Yeah. It's PR, but it's actually ineffectual because it's counterproductive, and it makes people feel, as you said, that they're overexposed.
I think it's great to a point where you are then known within the local community, but you can keep banging the drum too long, sort of thing. I remember,
you just need to do something different.
Yeah, people used to play games where they'd sort of count the appearances of someone in a certain publication and stuff like that. Play spot so and so, and see how many times times someone's in it. But I think with sort of out of the different types of PR you mentioned earlier, what types interest you most? I
like doing national PR. Very few of my clients are based here in Suffolk to begin with. A few are, but mainly those who are selling to a nationwide audience, or who have a brand that might be starting here in Suffolk and they want to sell it to a nationwide. So we're testing it in Suffolk. So my interest lies with national media, so national telly, national radio, those daily newspapers and magazines.
The sort of, what sort of projects have you, are you able to say sort of any types of projects that you've worked on in the past that have really grabbed you, ones that, because we all get this in work, there's certain things you do that, parts of the job that you really enjoy and throw yourself into, and there's kind of bits you have to do because it's got to be done, sort of any sort of specific areas or anything that really, really floats your boat, or anything you'd like to try?
They're 2 completely different questions. But the first one, you were saying, what do I really like doing that I do a lot of at the moment? Travel-oriented PR. The bit of national travel-oriented PR that my firm does is quite specialist. We provide a UK outsourced press office for hoteliers all around the world who want to have a presence and want to be seen by tourists over here, who need to book their holidays. Okay. So that's lovely, as you can imagine, for all the obvious reasons. But it's interesting and varied. And the kind of PR outcomes that you can deliver for those clients are interesting and varied also. You can get them onto the television as, win a holiday of a lifetime at the end of ITV's This Morning. Equally, you could pick up a local glossy and you could find something, a travel review, for example. That's nice, that variety.
Are there any, have you heard talk of any new trends? Obviously, the digital age has added new opportunities and stuff like that. Social media's, the kind of, the magic bullet everyone's talking about at the moment. And, I think there are winners and losers in both camps on that. Is there anything new you've heard rumours of, or anything you think is coming out on the horizon that could be of interest, or is it still, pretty much as is sort of thing?
No, I think there will be little peaks and troughs of popularity over the different methods. Social media's here to stay. The individual channels might shuffle in the deck a little bit, but anybody, for example, who's currently got a good-looking website that does have a presence on Facebook and LinkedIn, if they haven't already started doing video streamed onto their website, for example, then they need to be thinking about that, because so many of the potential customers that they could reach, or influencers that they could reach, are looking through video-based content, and they might miss it if it's in that one magazine that didn't land on their desk that month.
The interesting thing with that is looking at from a Google point of view and the other search engines, they optimise video content very heavily.
Yeah, and with all the caption and the tagging that can go along.
So again, that's a very big point. One thing you didn't mention, I don't know whether that's intentional or not, is Twitter. What do you make of it?
Well, no, I kind of both love it and hate it.
Yeah.
It's like that little beastie. Personally, I think it's quite good fun. Professionally, I see so many examples where it's horribly misused, and there's only so many times you can scream at your own PC screen because you can't help everybody achieve what they need to.
Yeah.
What I think a lot of people need to do if they're not already doing it is, if they are only having one Twitter profile, as I do, in that world of PR, you've got to have an authentic voice. So, for example, my corporate voice is my voice because I'm known as the face of my brand.
Yeah.
What you can't have is Joe the butcher or Joe the estate agent, who's known and trusted for the quality of his meat and his housing, then putting out tweets on his personal profile about what he did with the lads at the rugby club at the weekend, with any credibility remaining after that episode. So people, if you want one tip, it's, if you're not sure that you are the same person at work as you are at home, get a separate work Twitter account.
I think it's the other thing as well. I mean, with me, I tend to keep Facebook as personal.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn is my professional.
Yeah.
And I've got a personal Twitter thing, although, let's be honest, I'm jury's out with me on it. I'm not sold on it. But I do it. And I've got a business Twitter as well. So I keep the two separate because people don't want to hear, or no, it's not they don't want to hear, it's they probably shouldn't hear. That you've been away to, sort of wherever on a stag do with your mates the weekend sort of thing.
Exactly.
It can very quickly, sometimes it can work quite well probably, but once the damage is done, once the damage is done, once it's out there and you click send.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with Twitter with me is one of my personal gripes with it is anything you can access on your iPhone at 2:30 in the morning.
Oh yes.
After coming out of a nightclub,
yes, don't do it,
dangerous.
Folks. Don't
dangerous.
Do it.
Yeah,
social media after 10 p.m. if you don't work a night shift is always bad news.
Okay,
don't do it.
Good advice for everyone. In particular, with people when they approach you for PR, what's the typical process you would go through? Particularly taking our audience, small and medium-sized business, someone 20 or 30 employees, whatever, comes to you, says, I want to do a bit of PR. If they don't know necessarily what they want to do, is there a kind of process, a hand-holding process that you would go through to identify that? And what are some of those points that you'd get them to think about?
Well, the first thing I need to do, and sometimes I don't see the need for it, I have to insist that I go to their premises and that they don't tell their colleagues that I'm coming.
No, that's an
really
interesting
important.
One. Yeah, good.
Because mystery shopping is a really important tool for me. So I'll just go and experience and soak up what I think is happening in their workplace, and then I'll just spend an hour or two sitting with hopefully the decision maker saying, what is it that you want to achieve in terms of sales, marketing and profile raising?
Yeah.
Give me tangibles. Tell me how many more widgets you need to achieve sales on in the next 6 months. And tell me important things like, if you don't achieve it that quickly, what happens?
Yeah.
Are you just plucking goals out of midair? Because, for example, if it is a family business and they say, Helen, we've got budget for about a month and a half and we've got to have it achieving this within 3 months of it going live in terms of actual increases in sales and custom, we're going bust. The house is being repossessed. Well, that's not only really important for me to know, it's essential because it will change the mix of activities that I could possibly throw in. If we need things to work faster, we will load their campaign with different things that can reach a wider audience faster.
So you've got, kind of shock tactics or, a quick result one and then the more longer drip feed sort of options for people that have got time and budget on their side, essentially. Okay.
And I need to know what resources they have in-house. Are they able and equipped or even willing to be the face of their brand? If they're not, would they like to dominate someone? Or even better, go and introduce me to your team. I'll find the person who's the ideal face of your brand.
So, have you always been in PR? Is it, was it sort of media and stuff like that always been your sort of career?
Well, ish.
Yeah.
I had to come into a job with the word PR in it for me to realise after 30 years that, I've always done PR.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I did graphic design and business and finance at uni, did a couple of work placements as part of that course in a local theatre in Tyneside and then an opera house in Tyneside, and thought, I like this kind of being in a creative environment thing. And somebody who I consulted as a student 25 years ago suggested, why don't you go and have a chat with my successor at Edinburgh International Festival, because sometimes they take students on in the summer in their press office. Yeah. So I started there 25 years ago.
So it's interesting, because one of the things I've always liked about yourself is, although you've got the creative side that a lot of PR people have, you've got the business head behind it.
Oh yeah, and I can read a balance sheet.
And the funny thing is, I suppose, really being honest, I don't always see that. Sometimes it can be a bit sort of airy-fairy creative sort of arts, but you're able to sit there and look at the end goal of, right, what has this got to achieve, and this is how we're going to do it. Are you on board with it? Can your staff do this? Can they understand what the goal and why we're doing it? I think that's a big thing with PR. It's not necessarily something that my wife and I, we all, sort of quite often discuss marketing, and sort of, I come very much from a sales background, she comes very much from a marketing background, but essentially it's...
So you hate one another.
Yeah, basically, we disagree and stuff like that, but there's a lot of synergy between the two, and obviously PR as well. But I think one of the things with things like marketing and PR is it can be quite hard for people, particularly possibly even some of our audience, which is why I asked you earlier, your take on it is, sometimes people can't. It's not a tangible. You can't feel it. Even more so with PR. With marketing, you can feel the leaflet someone's produced in a graphic design, but with PR, it's all about perception, feel, vision, and being out there. And I think a lot of businesses, particularly within a downturn period, will withdraw funding for marketing, for training. For PR. Those sorts of kind of almost perceived as luxuries at times can be some of the first to suffer, and quite often they can be the one you shouldn't be getting rid of.
Well, you see, the example that you gave just there I find really interesting. So many people in so many different types of businesses will rightly invest in good looking graphic design and good quality printed materials, and then what are they going to do with them? You're looking at the stuff, and unless you know the people involved, it's meaningless. In actual fact, any printed material should only support a campaign of getting you out there, seen and known by the people that you want to do business with, because then they'll say, "Oh, can I have a leaflet then?"
But the thing is, though, also as a small business owner, it's you've got to be able to get yourself out there as well. And I think sometimes people who may not necessarily be that confident in projecting and getting themselves out there, but they need to. And it's kind of creating a PR campaign that will enable them to do what they're comfortable with and still get the results. And I think it's, I can't imagine there's a one-size-fits-all approach with your industry. It's very different. And you might have, for argument's sake, two hoteliers in the same place, but they're pitching at different parts of the market. So therefore their message needs to be, relevant to the audience that they're after.
Definitely,
With, sort of the local business community itself, we see the economy is not necessarily as strong as it's been in the past. Today they've announced 9 months into a recession sort of thing, and a double dip at that.
How did we get here then?
Do you, from what you see locally, a lot of people, you network and stuff like that. I mean, what's your take on the mood?
When I actually just take the work hat off and have a chat with people that I meet in business and say, how are things going for you? They'll, in general, they'll be saying quite upbeat things like, well, surprisingly, it's all right. I thought it would be much worse. And at this time of year, depending on their business, they'll say, it's a little quiet for the summer holidays, but that's quite a good thing because I've got the kids at home or whatever. I have to say that the kind of doom and gloom messages are a bit overblown in my experience. Even if I'm looking at people that are doing business to business selling, I'm not seeing insurers, head in hands going, everybody's cut their professional indemnity insurance, it's disaster. No, of course people are still paying for their business supplies. They might not be paying as much
Might
on
be
the
on
hospitality
30 days
side.
instead of 14, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when I look at businesses that are selling to consumers, well, frankly, it depends what items they're selling and at what entry point. If they're selling items where there's an entry point of a tenner, it's business as usual. If they're selling items where they've got to shift one and it's 20,000 to sell it, they're going to have to work harder and longer to get their sale, but they still get it because the people that want that product just taking a little longer to make their decision.
So as a thought then, I mean, for small business owners out there that might be watching this, can PR be done on a budget?
Oh gosh, yes. And people can do an awful lot themselves.
Yeah.
So the kind of, I don't know, tips on the back of my hand are clean up your image, people. Seriously, set up a new Facebook account which is just business and Twitter which is just business. Get on LinkedIn with a sensible biography that's work related. Get some testimonials posted by your loyal customers. Think very carefully who you're selling to. Describe your ideal target customer. Who is he? Who is she? What age? Where do they live? What do they do for a living? What do they read locally? Where do they socialise locally? And be there.
Yeah.
And then you should probably do things like go and make friends with your local journalists. If you know you've got some stories that might appeal to readers, well, if you're selling art, go and make friends with the arts consultants.
Yeah.
But it is just about going out,
being
into
brave
the
enough
community.
to take a step outside.
And ask your business colleagues what business networks do they recommend that might be right for them, and go along as a guest. Just get out there. Don't sit in your offices or your places of work waiting for business to find you. It doesn't. It doesn't. You know, you can be very busy for all of a month, and then you've got nothing to come the next month or the one after.
Yeah. With I mean, you know, you sort of own business and stuff like that. I mean, the PR you do for yourself and your own business, is that vastly different to clients or similar to some, or?
In general, it's quite different to many of my clients, bearing in mind that I've said that I do lots of travel, luxury hoteliers, for example. That's very glossy, national.
Quite sort of B2C orientated, sort of,
Yeah. But, it's very high-end, very polished, and the tools at my disposal are different from me just getting myself out there as Helen Oldfield, woman who lives in Ipswich, has a family in Suffolk, goes about my business when I'm not doing my PR. Yeah, so I do quite personalised PR. I go to lots of women's networks solely with the aim of just meeting delightful and pleasant people, because actually by listening to them and taking an interest in what they're doing in their businesses, and just occasionally if they ask me for it, giving them bits of feedback or tips, I do find that I've got a lovely network of brand ambassadors just out there saying nice things and sending their friends to me.
I think a nice thing, that something that I tend to find that companies probably don't do as much is actually look at the content of the material they put out. You know, I know grammatically and all that sort of side of it, it's something you're very good at. You know, you spent many years in media, sort of, proofreading and all.
Oh, but we've all made mistakes.
Yeah, and all sorts of things like that. Yeah, it's and someone that's written books myself. Thank heaven I actually have people that edit them. And actually sort out all the grammatical errors I make. But something I do tend to find as well is content can often be reused. Ourselves up, and we aimed very much to go for the sort of the mid to high end sort of side, and that's where we ended up.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't pay attention to who you're selling to, why you're selling to them, and why they're buying, you run the risk of not necessarily of working a lot harder than you need to and not getting the end results. And I think if you get your PR, your marketing mix, I'm starting to sound like my wife here, but you get all those things in place, all your ducks in order.
Yeah.
It should be, if used right, it will start to push your price points up, and you'll start to see a better return on your investment. And ultimately, that's what we all want. We're all in business to make a living, sort of
but
thing.
Just in case the good people of Felixstowe that have hospitality businesses are thinking that you've just said everyone put their prices up straight away. You can't do that.
No.
You can't do that without first doing all
there's
of the other
there's got to be a
things.
plan. There's got to be a plan, and ultimately,
and you've got to be delivering quality. That's the other really important part of PR. Your customer service, your customers' actual experiences of using your service or buying your stuff has got to be consistent with what the messages you're saying and putting out in your marketing materials on your website.
Do you find that's something that happens a lot, where a lot of people have got a very good message, but they're just not telling anyone?
Yeah, there's many people doing a great job, and they're just modestly and quietly hiding their light completely under a bushel. They're not telling people.
A lot of their business comes through referral and bits and pieces like that, and they're ticking along quite nicely, but with perhaps a little taster of PR, they can actually expand that message greatly and their business grow quicker.
And a classic example of that is, do you know Jane O'Riordan, who does Jane Hamilton Gorgeous Towels?
No, I don't know.
She has a quality product, and she's really diligent and hardworking and does a terrific job. And yet I see her product as being something that could be sold on a huge scale, nationwide and abroad. She's working hard with her team on fulfilling the lots of orders that she gets throughout the UK. But that's a classic example, though, of a product that could be sold anywhere at a premium level, nationwide and worldwide. And I'm really pleased she's going in that direction now, because she's got a great looking
and got a free bit of PR.
I know, and she's not even a client, she's a good friend.
The irony of it is, though, I mean, this just illustrated the point, really. You know, if you weren't here talking about it and endorsing a product that you feel good about, that message wouldn't have got out. So, PR can be that simple and ironically free if done right. But, I think it's a valid example that wasn't staged or anything. But,
you owe me, Jane O'Riordan.
So Jane, you get your checkbook out. But I think generally PR is quite a broad brush. There are so many different areas to it. And it's like any good business plan. Certain times need more focus on A than B. There's different opportunities and sort of tools business owners can bring to bear. If you're out there and you have any needs for PR and stuff like that, it's Helen Oldfield at Affinity PR. Thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Been delightful to have you. Thank you.
Thanks.